Okay, so obviously I don't know your possible solutions, so I'm going to show you where I'm going to go with this, and then we may change it maybe next week, because next week is our last week. If because we still have, we'll see how. I think for code challenge, we're going to do 5 and 6, and then there's 7 and 8. 8's the last one before we tally up. Okay, so maybe we'll do that. We'll see how far we get. Okay, so back here, here's what I ended up doing. Was I created a checkbox, and what happened was in my solution is that if of course they could enter these, that would work fine, right? So I think this is working code. Let's find out. Actually enter, right? Only local. So in this case, right, I could of course enter these, and this is on by default. Okay, so if I submitted that, cool. Now in this case, because we've wiped out, we can't actually see if it calculated correctly. But we can dig into that when we do the solution. But on the edit, I can show you that if I do, and you can see this, watch this, is if I do select don't have a dishwasher, then this becomes something they can't select. Okay, and if they do that, then we do see a decrease, which would make sense that it is calculating. But that's how I've done it. But let's start with just doing this first part, okay? And then we'll come back around and see how we go. All right, so in this case, right, you've already attempted this, so this is the solution. So first what I've done is I went ahead and set up the div. I'm going to call it water. It's required. Okay, there's how many times do you run. I didn't want you to have to walk sit through me doing this. And then I said more than 9 times per week. Now in this case, this is the part I want to talk about, because this goes back to Stephen's comment, right, about how we can grab values out of here, and something like what we did with the number of members of the household. So of course this is the option, but what we're going to do here is use the points itself. Okay, so let's remind ourselves. So again, if you pause and set that up, that's how I've done it. If you want to do something at least where you have those options. So on the first one, let's go back up to, we're working on water consumption. More than 9 times. Okay, so in here we're going to go 9. Oh, sorry, more than 9 times it is 3 points. My bad. And then between 4 and 9 is 2. Between 1 and 3 it's 1. And in this case it's 0. Okay, so let's just write the code for this. So let's come over to main. So now we have another new item, right, in our, okay, so just to make our lives easier, if I come over here and I say water, right, because that's what I called it, value, what is that value right now? Meaning what data type is it? Right, in our form, what data type is that item? And if you're not sure, this is where DevTools can help you out. Okay, so if we go to source, we go to main, we stop here, right? And actually I could have just hit edit here. I think that should have worked fine. Oh yeah, that's where my, actually yeah, that's okay. I can let this run. That'll be fine, because what happens is it fills out the form for me, except for this one, which we'll talk about. Food sources. Ooh, we didn't talk about that one, did we? Ooh, that one might have been an error. We'll have to check that one. And then how on dishwasher, let's do dishwasher. Okay. Or don't have one, or let's do one of these. Okay, so now I have my breakpoint in main, because now I'm in my event listener. I'm going to set it right here. I'm going to then hit submit, and it stops the submission. And I could just come down here and type or copy this or roll my mouse over it. It shows me it is a string. Okay. So, by the way, do you think it would have been different had we taken away the quotes? And the answer is no. It would still, the way the select and the option goes, it would still brought it as a string. So what we have to do, now we don't necessarily, in this case JavaScript drives people crazy, you don't necessarily have to, because later on we could have done it. But to be more precise, we do want to call parse int, which says take that string now, okay, and make it an integer. Okay, so let's just let that run. Come back over here, hit edit again. Okay. Wow, it did bring in all those except this one. That's awesome. Okay, so now we'll go here just to see that. Stop it here, roll over. And by the way, in DevTools, if you select the whole expression and roll over it, it'll show you. In this case, it's 0, which is what we would expect if you don't have a dishwasher, right? It's interesting that they're doing the, I could go off on that, right? Actually, dishwasher, I missed the H there, but basically they're saying if you don't have a dishwasher, then you get no points because it's basically you're just using less water, which makes sense. Okay, so now let's finish up now the rest of this, right? So now we need to go into our render. And because in our render, we're no longer outputting these, we don't have to do anything to that. The only thing we have to think about here now, right, is this. Okay, how do we then bring back, right? Because in the edit, are we in the edit? We're in the edit because the edit's the most, so form dot food water source dot value should be equal to object dot water. Actually, my bad. I remember. It's just water. Okay. Object dot water. Right? Oh, Rio, what are you doing? We're not here yet. We haven't done this yet. Actually, I penciled it out. That's why. I was already playing with it. Ah, my bad. That's okay. Let's start from here. So in this case, yeah, I was moving ahead a little too much. It's because I got talking about other stuff. That happens. Okay. So water, and I'm going to call it because that makes sense. Okay, water consumption. So then this dot water consumption is equal to water consumption, right? And then we'll do this dot calc water. It should be COM, right? Consumption, right? Right. Okay. C-O-N. All right, so then we go this dot water and that's one word, right? Calc. There we go. Okay. So now let's go do the method down here. Notice I already copied. So here's what I did. And this is something you might want to do is just take one of your other ones, right? The one maybe before it. And so now we're going to say, now that we have this as a value, we can say if it's greater than 9, right? This dot, and now here's where we can, kind of easily. So it's this dot water. I'm going to spell that right in a minute. Points. Okay. S, there we go. Right, so it's here. Good. So this dot water consum, that's right. Just want to make sure. Yep. Okay. So now these are values, so we can say if it's greater than, right, 9, then this dot water consum points is equal to what? Right, come back over here. So this would be 3, right? Else if, so here's where we can also use our handy dandy little multi-selector. If this dot water consum, okay, is greater, so if it's greater than 9, it's going to catch it here, right? And in this case, right, if it's between 4 and 9, okay, so we could just say greater than 4, or we could say greater than or equal to, right? But let's just say greater than 4 for a second. Maybe we'll come back around and play with that one, right? Then if it's greater than 4, we add 2, okay? And then in this case, if it's greater than, if you run it between 1 and 3, okay? So if it's greater than 4, so this is where you want to, this is where you want to stop and kind of think about, okay, am I doing this right? Okay, because this is the logic of this form right here, right? This part of, because if it's between these values, if they're between 1 and 3 times, they've already selected it. Actually, we don't even have to think about that, do we? That's right, we don't even have to think about that. Hold on. Yeah, that took me a minute to realize we don't even need this. That was the whole reason we did the points thing. We don't even need this. That's the great thing about this way of doing it. In this case, we don't even need to calculate it because on the form, they've already given us the drop down that corresponds to the value that we've already passed in, okay, on our here water comp. So in this case, this would be points. Yeah. Now let's see if it works. Coding's fun. I mean, I know it can feel like it's not sometimes, but it's like that problem solving of what you're doing. I don't know. I think it's fun. And you're not always going to get it right. It's like that's just part of the gig, is figuring out when you're doing something, because there's so many things you have to think about. Anyway, so let's, we're here. I got a breakpoint here. If I hit edit here and then I hit submit, I do have to select water consumption. So in this case, here's the line. Good, so I'm passing in water consumption. Yep, 1 point because it's between 1 and 3. God, that's right. See, that's so nice not to have to write that logic. Okay, but I'm not done, so let's go here, 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 water consumption points. Cool, if I roll over it, it's good. That's awesome. So now there's only one other thing I need to do here, is now come down here and add this dot water consum points. And then we would have the total. Cool. That's awesome. Okay, so now if I hit edit, we see everything gets populated except this, right? So I know if I hit don't have one, should be the same. If I hit edit and I hit 9, it should be, that's right, 3. 32 times 32 plus 3 is 35. That's right. So again, we don't see all the fields, but we can at least at this point determine that it is correct based on the calculation here. That looks right. Okay, so now let's fix the edit. Okay. Okay. So I think, and I'm looking at the time, it's 14 minutes. And so now we have, so you're going to have your I think what we're going to do is do your last, yeah, I think this is it. You're going to have one last code challenge. Okay? And this code challenge is for you to figure out how, when the user submits the form, right? When they hit edit, how to populate now that one. Because it's a little different, and I'm going to give you a little clue. Think about what here. I'll give you a little clue. Come down here. In order for the form to select, right, we've done this on all of them. That was a string. This needs to be a string. So how do we do that? So you know, how do we convert now? Because we want to do it the other way. What we were doing inside of our main.js was we were doing parse int. So what's the reverse of parse int, which is to take an integer and now make it a string? And where do we update that? So give that a try, and then I'll come back with the solution.